Well, hello again, boys and girls. As I'm sure you all know, the first full trailer for James Gunn TM's Superman TM has finally dropped, and it contains a snippet of the first scene we've seen of David Cornswit's Clark and Rachel Brosnahan's Lois having a little conversation. It's still not much to go on, but I've watched the full trailer already, and based on the little bit they have shown us, I am not impressed. So I thought I'd go through the trailer with you and give you my thoughts and concerns about the characterization of Clark that we're given and what other little details we can glean from the footage we have. The trailer begins with a playful conversation between Lois and Clark where he agrees to let Lois interview him as Superman. The mock interview quickly turns heated when Lois decides to take it seriously and give him the type of objective interview he'd be likely to get from any other reporter. As soon as she makes any implication that there is negative sentiment around Superman's recent actions or implies that he might have made the wrong choice or not thought it through, he gets defensive and insecure.
Recently, you've come under a lot of fire for what some might...
It's a lot.
It is then revealed that Superman's actions that Lois is criticizing is that he illegally entered a foreign country without authorization from that country's government or from the US to stop an ongoing military conflict. Or as Clark puts it, he stopped a war.
Today, the Secretary of Defense said he was going to look into your actions. That's funny?
My actions? I stopped a war.
Maybe.
Not maybe. I did.
Oh god, are we doing this again? Didn't Zack Snyder have his Superman do the exact same thing in BVS? Act rashly and interfere in a CIA sting operation to take down an African warlord? At least in that scenario, he was doing it to save Lois, which is still very dumb and would raise suspicion as to why Superman was interfering in government operations for one reporter, but that's a far cry from taking it upon yourself to stop a war between two foreign nations when you have no authority to do so. Clark immediately gets hostile with Lois for deigning to ask him why he committed a war crime when that's literally her job as a reporter and he agreed to do this in the first place.
In effect, you illegally entered a country.
This is how you're gonna be?
I'm not the one being interviewed, Superman.
With every relevant question she asks him, like whether he consulted with the president before breaking numerous international laws, he gives an exasperated sigh followed by a frustrated and abrupt, "No," like a grumpy teenager whose mother just asked him if he took out the trash.
Did you consult with the president?
No.
When she claims he acted as a representative of the United States by intervening in a military conflict when nobody asked him to and that this has consequences for the world, he yells at her and says, "I was representing doing good!"
You seemingly acting as a representative of the United States will
representing
cause
anybody
more
except for me
problems around the world.
and doing good.
Is this guy fucking four? Stop war good because war bad and people get dead, so I saved them. This man is in his 30s if we're going by the age of the actor, and he's a professional journalist. Does he not know a single thing about geopolitics? Has this version of Superman never bothered speaking with the president or the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to establish ground rules about what he is and isn't allowed to do as an American citizen who also happens to be an incredibly powerful and independent superhero? This version of Ma and Pa Kent must be shit parents who never taught him to be responsible with his abilities, even though the whole point of Gunn's DCU is to have heroes who are already established and who aren't brand new to the hero game. Lois tells Clark that he should have considered the consequences of his actions before illegally entering a war he has no part in, and he fucking screams at her like a whiny child, "People were going to die!"
I would question myself in the same situation and consider the consequences.
People were going to die!
Okay, number 1, don't yell at your girlfriend for telling you to think before you do shit. Number 2, no fucking shit. That's what happens in war. But unless you're gonna declare yourself president of Earth and decide when and where war can and can't happen or for what reasons, you don't get to fly all over the world and interfere in global politics without fucking thinking. War is complicated. If you believe in freedom or free will, you don't get to decide what political actions other countries decide to take. Superman stopping natural disasters or supervillains or alien invasions are obvious goods with no nuance to them. You should definitely save innocent people from horrors beyond their control. But unless you want to be a politician, you better stay out of politics. The rest of the trailer shows us some action scenes that don't give us much context for the rest of the story, but I'm gonna speedrun some nitpicks I have with the rest of it before I analyze what's wrong with the interview scene, give you some comparisons to similar scenes from other Superman adaptations, and explain why he's out of character. Why does Superman need help getting out of a crater from a regular guy? He's invulnerable. Smashing into the ground hurts the ground, it shouldn't hurt him. I hate the costume, I hate the hair, overall, I hate the way everything looks. It looks cheaply shot, the CGI looks rushed, and the costumes look like CW shit. Oh my god, James Gunn! The Engineer, and by extension any characters from the Authority, are a terrible fit for a Superman movie. Krypto is lame. He was lame in the comics, he's lame here, he's just a self-insert for James Gunn's dog. Get him out of here. Apart from Clark, Lois, and Jimmy, I hate the casting for pretty much every other character in the movie. Pa Kent looks like Harvey Weinstein, Nicholas Hoult is far too boyish and wimpy for Lex Luthor, GL, Mr. T, and Hawkgirl all seem miscast to me, and Ma Kent sounds like a trailer trash grandma. Speaking of trailers, James put the Kents in a double wide instead of a farmhouse because he said he's never met a farmer who owned a house, confirming for us that James Gunn has never fucking seen a farm. Farmers are fucking loaded rich most of the time. Overall, it seems tonally confused and overly goofy, and like James Gunn has no idea what Superman is supposed to be, or any interest in finding it out, which is why he's filled in the stuff he doesn't understand about the character with his own morals, insecurities, and observations he's made in his own life, instead of what Superman would think, feel, or do. Speaking of which, back to the interview. The way Clark behaves in this scene seems so wildly out of character based on how we normally see him in other mediums. He seems rash, immature, angry, insecure, and unable to take any criticism from the woman he presumably loves and respects a great deal. He didn't consider the consequences of taking action in a foreign military conflict. He thought he could just fly over to a war zone and stop the fighting from happening without consulting his own government. What did he think would be the public response? Did he think everyone would be cool with a superpowered alien with no formal allegiance to any nation just doing whatever he wants to enemy combatants in another country? There are ways to approach the conversation about how Superman reconciles his American citizenship and his instinct to help people all over the world, but this seems so childish and ill-considered. A better version of this problem was presented in an episode of Superman and Lois. Clark hears a military submarine in the Pacific Ocean that has sustained hull damage during a storm and is quickly filling up with water. He immediately flies over to pull the sub out of the water before it floods and carries it back to shore. This is an obviously good act of heroism, saving the crew from a natural disaster that they couldn't have predicted or stopped without his help. The problem arises from the fact that this was a nuclear submarine belonging to the North Korean Navy, and Superman has had an ongoing working relationship with the United States Department of Defense, who consider North Korea a hostile nation. Superman's military liaison used to be his father-in-law, General Sam Lame, but Sam has retired and now Clark has to deal with a new CO, Lieutenant Anderson, who doesn't know Clark is Superman and is suspicious about his loyalty to the United States government. Superman tries to explain that he tries not to take sides when it comes to geopolitics, but that he always tries to help people in need without causing international incidents or wars. This is not good enough for Anderson, and his suspicion of Superman comes to a head later in the season, with the result being catastrophic for both men. But Superman makes his modus operandi very clear to the Pentagon throughout all 3 seasons of this show. He's not fighting anybody's wars, but he will help innocent people in danger no matter where they're from. Another scene from the same show depicts an argument between Clark and Lois. During this season, Clark learned that the government had a special program dedicated to designing kryptonite-based weapons in case Superman ever turned on them. Though this causes near-fatal problems for Clark throughout the season, he decides that the government having those weapons is actually a good thing in case he or any other Kryptonians become a threat. Clark makes this decision unilaterally without consulting his wife because he knows how much she worries for his safety and that she will not want to even consider the other side of the conversation. Clark keeps his temper in check even though Lois is angry and yelling at him because he understands exactly why she's worried and where she's coming from. But he doesn't back down or change his position because he believes he made the right call. He's understanding and sympathetic to Lois's feelings, but he stands his ground without losing control over himself. You know, because he's a grown man in his 40s with a wife and 2 teenage sons and he understands how to control his own emotions. I've already had conversations with people in some comment sections who will say anything they can to justify a clearly weaker version of Clark in a movie they haven't seen yet but know it will be amazing somehow. And the top responses are,
"He's a younger Superman. He's not done maturing, he's going to go on an arc. Wow, so Superman can never show emotion? You must want a boring robot Superman."
Young men in their 20s are all this passionate and immature.
Pretty much any excuse they can come up with for why an adult man who was supposedly taught good values by his parents, who deals with the stress of holding people's lives in his hands every day, who is a professional reporter who is used to asking tough questions and getting tougher responses, and generally having difficult conversations with strangers who don't even like him, would immediately crack under pressure in a mock interview with his girlfriend, whom he knows loves and respects him, and is trying to prepare him for the publicity nightmare he created for himself, and that he agreed to. Does that sound like a mature adult to you? Does that sound like a man who spent his entire life learning to control his mind and his body because if he slips up even once, he could accidentally crush someone's skull if he gets angry and hurts them? Or does it sound like a 58-year-old out-of-touch Hollywood writer who puts all the criticism he receives online into every single thing he's made so far because he can't imagine a man more emotionally strong or intelligent than himself, so he has to write Superman as a self-insert? James has said this version of Clark is 25, so yes, he is younger, and I'll be honest, most 25-year-olds today aren't what I would call the peak of masculine stoicism, but Superman should be. Clark grew up like a normal kid, but he is by no means an average man. John and Martha are above average parents and people. Good, moral, hard-working farmers who know right from wrong and taught their son not just manners, not just good values, but that the powers he has means he has a responsibility to be the best person he can be. Not a regular man, a Superman. The young idiot asshole normal guy superhero excuse is a contradiction in terms. It didn't work for the Batman, and it ain't gonna fly here. Superheroes, by definition, reach a higher standard than the average person. Normal, shitty men in their 20s shouldn't be superheroes. Only those with exceptional moral fiber and strength of character have what it takes to shoulder that burden. Clark, in any other adaptation, even at 25, is a mature, kind, empathetic, strong, stoic, and reliable man who keeps his resolve in the face of Darkseid and Brainiac. He doesn't throw temper tantrums when his mommy wife questions him. One final example is this scene from Justice League Unlimited. Yes, this is an older Superman who has had many public mistakes, but if you watch Superman the Animated Series, the predecessor to this show, he's every bit as mature and controlled in that show as he is in this one. More so, in fact, because Superman's arc in this show is that he's kinda losing his marbles from all the stress he's under currently, and he's backsliding a bit. Lois and Superman are having a little date night on top of a bridge, and Lois begins to express some concerns about how Superman has been acting lately. Keep in mind, in this context, Lois doesn't know Clark is Superman, so she's speaking to him as Superman, and he is doing the same to her, just like Lois and Clark were supposed to be doing in the mock interview from the trailer. She brings up some public scandals that have caused the people to be a bit weary of Superman and the Justice League, and again, he defends his actions in a diplomatic fashion without getting too heated. But he does lose this exchange. Lois makes the point that he needs the public's trust in order to serve them, and that means he can't just go and do whatever he wants all the time. He and the League need to think more carefully before they act in the future if they don't want the people and the government to turn against them.
You remember what happened to your reputation when you were under Darkseid's control.
That was years ago.
People haven't forgotten. Not everybody.
I know.
Do you? The way you and the League have been acting lately. Look, I'm a reporter, not a public relations person, but with all the muscle you guys throw around, you're starting to scare me.
I'll admit, we got a lot of power, but we only use it to help.
Like when you and Captain Marvel wrecked Lexor City on national television? Or maybe you mean when you fired that big space gun in the desert?
We come on a little strong sometimes, but it's for the people's own good.
That sounds like something Lex would say.
Don't even joke about that. I'm nothing like Lex Luthor.
Of course you're not. I'm just saying you can't serve the public without their confidence. It's a question of trust.
Clark takes the criticism to heart, and Lois gives him a kiss that tells him she means well, and his only response is a kind smile and they get back to their date because he knows she's made a valid point, and he doesn't have a counter-argument to follow up with. That's how adults have civil disagreements. Or at least they used to. What this all comes down to, once again, is adaptation. How far can you deviate from the source material before it becomes unrecognizable? Clark Kent has numerous positive traits that are once again missing from this new version of the character, not unlike Robert Pattinson's Batman. And saying he's young doesn't justify a complete character replacement. When you're a good person, which I thought superheroes are supposed to be, you don't become a completely different person from your 20s to your 30s. You stay the same kind person you already were, and hopefully you gain some wisdom and experience. Age is not character, and changing a character's age shouldn't change who they are. People use the same excuse for Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, as though him being old meant he automatically went from optimistic, hopeful hero to cowardly, depressed piece of shit. He's young, he's old, it's a different universe, this is an adaptation, it's an Elseworld, blah blah blah, all of these are excuses for shitty writing. Just write the character the way he's meant to be, and if you are not capable of writing that yourself, then don't. Hire someone who can instead. Well, that's about the long and short of it. Not a great start to the marketing campaign for this film. I do genuinely hope the movie is good, but from what little they've shown us, it seems like Gunn really only can write one type of male character. An arrogant, immature, whiny man-baby who only solves his problems with violence. This very much looks like Superman and the Guardians of the Galaxy, which does not fit with Superman at all. I hope you enjoyed this little quickie, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you around.
Hmm.